we know there's the Gallup State of Workplace report comes out every year, that when empathy is higher, there is improved data across the board. So you see 70% higher profits, you see 30% higher output across the board, and that's even in businesses like software and sort of tech-based businesses, and 10% higher customer loyalty.
Before we do it and dive into this treasure of wisdom, there's a little something from the heart I always ask. Every subscription, every like, every share means the world to us. So it's not about numbers, it's about the incredible community we're building together. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share with your friends. Okay, Monday Talkers, welcome back. Joining me today, it's amazing. Nicklin is an author, speaker, and founder of Empathy Everywhere. Hi, Mimi.
Hello, I'm ready. Daniel. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's get started by getting to know a bit better, in a nutshell, who's Mimi Nicklin?
Gosh, who am I? So I am originally British. I am joining you today from Malaysia, where I live, and I've been in Asia and Africa and the Middle East for 18 years. So I have been in this side of the world for my entire career. And as you touched on earlier, I specialize in empathy. So I get up every day to create, inspire, to hopefully teach more human connection and understanding in our workplaces and our world. So that's my passion, and that's what brings me here today.
Let's dig more into the human side of Mimi. What story did it drive you into empathy?
Well, it's not really personal, but I'll give you the personal version of it. That in 2018, I relocated to Dubai for a role, a regional CEO role, and I was entirely unprepared for what I found in Dubai at that time in that role. It wasn't, let's say politely, quite as it was explained to me on paper before I moved my entire life to Dubai. And I was thrown into what was probably both a personal and a professional crisis. I had a very small baby and I didn't know anybody there in the city. And I was faced with turning around a sinking company. And I basically had no skill set to do that because I had come from very corporate roles. And this threw me into the world of entrepreneurialism. And in that process, I went to meet with a business coach to get some advice on how to restructure this chaos that I had found in Dubai. It was Ramadan. I remember it was extremely hot that year, so probably in the mid-40s. And I spoke to this business coach and she was asking me about my leadership, and I was talking about intuition. And she stopped me and she said, Mimi, is it intuition or is it empathy? And that sentence probably changed my entire life. But in terms of the story that really sort of shifted things was I at the time said to her, no, I mean, it's not empathy. What's empathy got to do with business? But that did lead me to study what's called the empathy deficit, which is the lack of empathy in our world. And the one piece of data or the story that I read that really then changed my life was a story in the USA. And it was from a mother of a 4-year-old girl. And at the time, my daughter was probably 2. And she recounted a story of having to teach her 4-year-old how to sit on a loo, on a toilet seat, and lift her feet in case a gunman came to the school and shot the children. And that they had to teach these tiny little girls and boys how to hide in bathroom stalls with their feet lifted to hide from gunmen. And this story was so profoundly impactful on me that I felt that I had to work further into understanding our world, right? How is it that we have got to a point as a human race where these are realities for our children and for the world we're growing up in? And off the back of that, I also found out that the second biggest killer of our youth, so 14 to 24-year-olds, is in fact suicide. So Daniel, when our children are killing themselves rather than staying on the planet with us, we have a problem. So those 2 pieces of data led to many more, but they were fundamentally life-changing for me, and they led me to eventually leave the corporate world and
Well,
do this work full time.
so empathy sounds great in theory, but in reality, how we translate it to better results in this competitive world of business?
Yeah, well, I get asked that question all the time, and there is plenty of data now. So this is not just me and some of my colleagues that are having this discussion, but many large organizations, McKinsey, PwC, Gallup, Harvard, who are throwing out this data to prove the impact of empathy, which is fundamentally perspective taking. Okay, so fundamentally what we're talking about is
Yeah.
bosses, leaders, understanding their workforces, their colleagues and their clients, right? So this is about human understanding. We know there's the Gallup State of Workplace report that comes out every year, that when empathy is higher, there is improved data across the board. So you see 70% higher profits, you see 30% higher output across the board, and that's even in businesses like software and sort of tech-based businesses, and 10% higher customer loyalty. That's just 3 statistics. But there is endless data now that shows that when that organizational understanding is higher, when people feel seen and heard, they work better, they work longer hours, more effectively, more creatively, with more innovation. And the data shows that the other side of the equation decreases. So we see lower levels of sick days, we see lower attrition, we see higher levels of loyalty in staff. So when this understanding is high, profit, output per capita is higher, performance is higher, people stay longer. So Daniel, there's plenty of data.
Okay, so empathy isn't just about being nice. It's a practical side, right? It has a practical side.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can you see it?
Empathy actually has nothing to do with being nice. So I always say to my audiences, I would love you to be nice, but that's not what we're talking about. Okay, what we're talking about is perspective taking, is using human data sets. Okay, so many business leaders have dashboards and plenty of data around profitability and cash flow and these types of things. When we're using empathy in the workplace, we're using human data. We are understanding why people are performing or not performing. Why are they turning up late? Why are they not delivering? Why are they not growing in their role? Why is this team not communicating? Why are the clients leaving? Why has your supplier that's been with you for 21 years suddenly decided to take their business elsewhere? This is empathy. This is understanding your workforce, okay? It's nothing to do with being nice. It's nothing to do with being kind. It's nothing to do with compassion, okay? Empathy is a skill set. It's built into your prefrontal cortex. It's an evolutionary skill set. We have it as human beings to drive our survival, not thriving, our survival as a human race, okay? So fundamentally, we're talking about better connection, collaboration, and engagement in our workplaces. And we know, Daniel, that we have a huge engagement issue out there. Again, according to Gallup today, only 22% of the global workplace is engaged, which means that over 70% of the global workforce is unengaged, right? Unengaged. And the cost of that, again, according to Gallup, the estimated cost of that lack of engagement, wait for this, $8.8 trillion in lost productivity. $8.8 trillion because we have so big numbers.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about, you mentioned in the pre-interview something about health. Not only behavior, but how health can be connected to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, what we know is when we have low engagement, we have a whole lot of, well, let's start backwards a little bit more. When we have low empathy and we therefore have low engagement, we have a whole host of both mental, emotional, and physiological impacts of that. So in my new book, actually, I'm studying a huge amount around longevity, how living is extended when we have higher levels of belonging and connection, okay? There are 3 ways that health data really connects to humans as we are: immunity, stress, and cardiovascular health. all three of those things, so how well you fight off disease, how well you manage your stress, and how strong your heart is, when you bring those three together, you get longer longevity in life, right? Healthier hearts, lower stress, better immunity, you live longer. We know that when connection and belonging go up, all three of those health indicators are indicated positively. So when you are connected to others, when you are less lonely, you feel better in yourself as a human, you have higher levels of immunity, your body is functioning better, you have lower levels of adrenaline, cortisol in your blood system, which means that your stress levels are lower, you are able to live a healthier life. And therefore, your heart capacity, your cardiovascular health is higher. In fact, it was the Surgeon General in the US last July who stood up and told the world that loneliness, lack of belonging, these gaps between us, is now the highest burden to our healthcare cost, and being lonely is as dangerous to our health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Okay? Our loneliness, our lack of connection, our lack of understanding is literally killing us. So not only is it killing your profitability, but it is killing our people as well.
So we're not only talking about the environment of the workplace, we're talking about individuals.
We're talking about individuals. Indeed, actually 52% of people today, recent data, say that they have suffered with either mental or physiological, so physical health issues in the last 12 months in the workplace, 51%. So over half of us are unwell in some form in the workplace. Now, of course, that is not all directly linked to empathy. But again, if you look at the data from McKinsey and KPMG, what they're showing is that leadership is a huge part. So is pay, so salary is part of it. But leadership is a huge part of driving that. And there are 4 areas, I wrote them down actually just before we met, that the global workforce is upset about, is complaining about, which is leading to these problems. My leaders don't care about me. The leadership isn't meaningful to me. I don't get any support in the workplace that is relevant to me. And I don't feel valued in terms of my health and wellness in the workplace, right? What is that leading to? It's leading to people leaving the workplace. So beyond the physiological issues, beyond the profitability and performance issues, okay, and this data is also fascinating, Daniel, 40% of people in the US say they will leave their job in the next year, right? They're unhappy, their bosses don't get them, they're gonna leave. In India, that number is 66%, okay? In the UK, in the United Kingdom, for the first time since records began, we have more vacant roles than unemployed people. In Japan, there are 900,000 vacant roles. In the USA, it's 11 million vacant roles. People don't want to work. People don't want to go to the workplace. They cannot find places that they want to work. They cannot find leaders and teams that can keep them in the workplace. So this is a huge impact, back to the $8.8 trillion in lack of productivity. And of course, the impact of that is we therefore have social issues, because now you have people that aren't working, which is a burden on the healthcare system and the social system and society at large. So no pressure to all you leaders listening there, but we have a fundamental need, not a want, a need to reconnect our people, to understand them and to engage them. Because without pulling people back into a workplace and managing this balance between physical and emotional stress and contentness and engagement, we have all kinds of issues coming our way.
So let's talk about empathy as a factor, is a key for thriving the workforce, both now and the future. But how exactly does it fit into evolving world of work? You know, the world is moving very fast, and empathy is like the basic need. How does it align?
I mean, empathy at its core is, as I touched on earlier, it's pro-evolutionary. We are born needing to be seen, to be heard, right? If you leave this recording with me and you walk to your local coffee shop, Daniel, and as you're walking down the road and you're walking into your coffee shop, Nobody recognizes you at all. They don't look at you, nobody nods, nobody makes eye contact. Perhaps the person at the till doesn't see you. Nobody, okay? The data shows that within 60 seconds, your immune system, your neurological system will respond, okay? We are meant to be seen. We are pro-social species. We're not good when we're alone, okay? Empathy is the skill set that enables us to collaborate, to communicate, to work together, right? To be able to come together as a society, whether that's within a workplace or in the wider world. And as I said, we are born needing that. We can't do anything alone. We can't build
I'm really I was going to say it's really challenging for you to connect the dots and prove that empathy has really impactful effects on environment, on even individuals. I'm sold. Great job, you did. But if empathy is so great, why do we seem to be lacking it in the first place?
Yeah, we have a huge decline. We have 48% less empathy than we did 3 decades ago. So that's nearly 50% of
Why is it going? Why are we losing it?
It's going in many places. So it's going so there's probably 3 or 4 key reasons. The loneliness endemic is both the cause and the response, right? So the more lonely we are, the less good we are at empathizing. But of course, the less empathy we have, the more lonely we become. So social isolation is a key part in that. And that is being caused by urbanization. So people leaving their hometowns, leaving where they came from, moving to places where they have no connection, nobody knows them, nobody understands them. The digital world has an impact. I might add both positive and negative, perhaps for another day. But the digital world disconnects us from the human world, right? Because we're in social, we're in our phones, we're disconnected, we're not connecting with people in the real world. Lower levels of reading, all right? So within schools and with youth, reading and storytelling, which has been part of the human race forever, is in decline. And that's a huge teacher of our youth and our children in terms of empathy. Fear is a huge one. We live in fear, and that has spiked since COVID pandemic started in 2020, right? We have so much turmoil in our political, social, and economic environment. When we are scared as human beings, we retreat to what we know, which reduces our empathy, right? Because we're too scared. We don't want to understand. I don't want to know your reality. I just want to stay in my bubble, and that is a natural human response. The last two, I would say, empathy has 2 real enemies. One is low time and the other is high stress. And if I asked all your audience today listening to this to put your hand up just to yourself, who has low time and high stress, I suspect most of your audience are going to agree, right? And that's because empathy is driven by curiosity. Curiosity is driven by listening. To listen, which by the way is a skill set that we are hugely lacking in, to listen you need time, right? If I want to really understand Daniel, how are you? It will take me maybe 10 or 15 minutes to understand really how Daniel is today versus I'm fine, thanks, how are you? Okay, so we need time to build curiosity, to understand data, to understand your client's decision or why your teammate isn't performing. You can't do that walking down the corridor. And when it comes to stress, it's related to neuroscience. We live in a constant state of stress. The human body is not meant to. I will cut the science, but the fundamental shortcut of that is that when you live under high amounts of stress, whether that's because you've got a difficult boss or because your country's at war or because you have economic crisis, your brain will respond in such a way that it moves the blood and the oxygen in your body away from the parts of the brain responsible for empathy. We are in what's known as fight or flight response, a constant state of stress that disables the brain, our ability from connecting and understanding with others, because fundamentally the blood is elsewhere in the body. So there are many reasons, and many of them are cyclical. Higher stress, lower empathy, higher stress, and so it goes on.
Maybe because the world is going into a faster rhythm than let's say, the time we need to communicate as human, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you mentioned loneliness and in many occasions, but it sounds serious. What kind of impact does it have on us as individuals? Some people like to stay at home and close everything, and they don't like to communicate. this is not the norm, but does that be diagnosed as there is something wrong? It's not healthy. So how does it affect human behavior in work and in life?
Like the definition of loneliness, Daniel, is not a lack of people. It's a lack of connection. So what you were touching on there potentially could be loneliness, but potentially could be introversion, right? And one of the positive things, and let's acknowledge that the pandemic was horrendous and traumatic in many, many ways. But it did have some positive impacts on the world we live in today, 4 years later. And one of those is that it balanced out the introverts and the extroverts. So pre-COVID, the extroverts nearly always won, right? The extroverts got the place at the table and they shouted the loudest and they were heard the most. But what the pandemic has done is fast-tracked our digital evolution, our virtual connectivity around the world, and has allowed the introverted, or the more introverted, the people you're describing who like to stay at home and work from home and be in their own environment, to build those connections even more widely and deeply than they ever had. So loneliness is not necessarily connected to being alone. It's not about, a lack of people. It's a lack of connection. So for anyone listening, if you have ever been to a networking event, for example, and you've walked into a room full of people and you've sort of run to the bar, to get your orange juice, just to have something in your hand because you're wondering if anyone is going to understand you. Is there anyone like me in this room, right? That is where loneliness comes in, right? Feeling like there's no one that really gets you, or that doesn't understand you, or that doesn't see things like you do, and that can be because of opinion.
You don't fit. Yeah,
you don't fit. Yes, you don't fit, or you can't find your tribe, or you can't find your people. You can be, one of the chapters in my first book is called Lonely But Not Alone. We are surrounded by people all the time, but that doesn't mean we're not lonely, right? You can be a mum, as a mum myself, my daughter's a bit bigger now, but many new mums talk about this when they go back to the workplace, right? They took their maternity leave, they're ready to go back to work, but they feel that nobody understands them because now they have this tiny baby at home that they love, but they want to be at work, they want to go back to work, they're professional women, and they find that nobody understands those months being stuck between the world of motherhood and loving your newborn and wanting to be at work and leading your professional career. It leads to loneliness. So you hear, as one example, many new mums find themselves deeply lonely. They're not alone. They're surrounded by their colleagues and their people and the school and the daycare and plenty of people, just not connections that mean anything to them. So that's why we're living in this loneliness epidemic. And Daniel, the data shows that 52% of us are lonely. And if you do a very sort of rough build-up of that to the kind of world population, you would be saying that's 3.5 billion lonely people. When you know that loneliness leads to premature death, we have a really big problem on our hands.
Okay, so Mimi, let's not get scared anymore. Let's go positive a little bit. So if people listening today want to add little empathy magic to their lives, how can they start?
Yeah. The first thing I'll say to your point around positivity is there is new data out. It's the first I've seen. I saw it yesterday, Daniel. It's out of the US and it shows that the Gen Zs, it is not 100% proven, but it's very positive and it's in the right direction, very optimistic, that the Gen Zs are set to be the most empathic generation that we've had yet. Okay, so the signs are good. The empathy is coming back. The young people are driving. They want to be connected. They want to fix the world. They want to pull people back together. So there's lots of positivity out there. There's lots of optimism. I can tell you that in my work, when I started this 4 years ago, it was very new. People didn't understand why I wanted to talk about empathy in the workplace. Today, I spend every day, all day, traveling the world doing this work. And the brands I'm doing it with are big brands, Coca-Cola, Standard Chartered, Apple. I mean, big brands. So there is optimism for everybody listening. People are aware of this. People understand the empathy deficit, and societies and organizations want to fix it. If you want to be part of that change, in terms of that question, Daniel, around how to do it, the most simple way to create more empathy in your life is to improve your listening. Because as I said earlier, the backbone to all empathy is listening. If you want to understand people, You have to listen to them. So if I was just to outline a couple of ways to do that, to really lean into active listening, the first thing I would say is to improve your eye contact. That really enables people to feel heard, right? So if you test this tomorrow, when you go get your coffee or your tea somewhere, when the person pours you your coffee in the coffee shop and says, you know, hi, how are you? Stop, look them in the eye and say, I'm fine, how are you? And pause. And you'll see literally 90% that coffee barrister will go, I'm good, thanks. And they'll smile at you and they will look at you because you're the first person that's done it all morning. Because to your point, Daniel, nobody has any time, right? So the first thing, make eye contact and create time. Create time for people so that they really feel. From a body language point of view, lean inwards to people, uncross your arms and put your phone away. There is data that shows that even if your phone is on the table, it changes the perception of the person and how much you are listening. So if we had this interview and I had sat here the whole time, you know, with my phone here, I haven't looked at it, I haven't touched it, but both you, Daniel, and your audience would feel like she wasn't really present, right? And that's the same if you're in an office, if you're delivering a keynote, if you're with your child at the dinner table. Get rid of those devices. It will enable you to listen better. The better you listen, the more data you get, the more you're able to empathize.
More able to communicate.
True.
Well, very, very, very interesting. And I have this curiosity out of like, okay, you found this gap, you found this, how does it affect our lives and business and all that stuff? So what's the world pre-Mimi and after Mimi? when you deliver this to Coca-Cola or Apple, or how do you measure the difference? How they feel that they have done something to their environment, their workplace?
So I don't measure it, but their HR teams do, their leadership teams do, and there's a couple of ways that they do that. The first is in sentiment analysis. So they're analyzing the general sentiment, which is motivation, morale, and engagement in some form. That changes in different businesses. But the sentiment of the staff. Often my sessions are within teams, so within the leadership team or within the security team or whichever team I'm working with, right? So in those micro teams, they can manage sentiment, relationships, rapport, morale, pre and post these sessions. And of course, my sessions are not just off, right? So in terms of how those staff are feeling, how they're engaging, that type of thing. The second is often measured via inclusion, because when empathy is higher, inclusion is higher. Because I always ask my clients, how are you ever going to include someone if you don't ask them how they want to be included, right? So we have all these inclusion metrics, but nobody's asking the people how they want to be included. So the second measurement is around inclusion and the sort of effectiveness of inclusion within those businesses. And then the third is normally tracked over time. It can be with questionnaires. It can be a mixture of questionnaires and KPI development, where they actually look at performance, right? So when they see shifts in the leadership, leaders that now have more open door time or what I call open rooms, when they're listening more, they're engaging, they're creating deeper culture and engagement, they're able to track the performance of those teams, right? So output per capita, resignations, tenure, happiness, sick days, all of these types of things. So you're not measuring the empathy, you're measuring the impact of the empathy.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
So and often, and you're just now, about an hour ago, I got a WhatsApp from a client in Sri Lanka, actually, who sent me some photos from their course that I was part of, saying, you know, it's successfully concluded and the metrics are this and the satisfaction is this. So it's very rewarding, right? When you finally get that data and you see this was a bank, so in the banking sector, and you think, okay, well, it's working, right? Little bit by little bit.
Cool. Amazing. All fantastic. So for those who want to dive deeper, why should they connect with you and your work?
Yeah, well, I would love to connect with you. My name is Mimi Nicklin. You can find me at Mimi Nicklin pretty much everywhere. Or you can find me on my website, which is www.empathyeverywhere.co.
Cool. All right. So one last message would you like to conclude with?
I would love to. I would love to say two things as part of that. The first I would say is that the more the world talks about empathy, the more empathy the world will have. So if you can take this interview or just these thoughts and spread a little bit, our world will be better off. And the second thing I would say to leave us today is to remember that we are all far more alike than we are different. And if we put that in the front of our minds, we're far more likely to have a connected, healthy, happy world than if we keep ourselves apart. So here's the connection, and here's to more empathy everywhere.
Amazing. I enjoyed it really. Well, thank you very much, Mimi. That sounds really like a much brighter path to take and really eye-opening. Thanks for joining us on Monday Talks and sharing your passion for it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, our viewers, remember to follow, like, subscribe to Monday Talks, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did for this really insightful conversation. And till next time, stay empowered and take care. Bye.